Now that the multiverse is making old Spider-Mans cool again, Spider-Men? It's a great time to brush up on the last Peter Parker reboot before we get the last film in the current reboot before it's rebooted again after this one, as Tom Holland has expressed a desire to retire Tony Stark's Spidey suit for the quiet life in England. So let's sharpen our Spidey senses with some behind-the-scenes secrets from the Black Sheep reboot that only made Sony a pathetic $1.4 billion, The Amazing Spider-Man. How much do you think someone should be paid to play Spider-Man? 10 million? 20? Well, if you're Andrew Garfield, that number is way lower. Garfield was paid a relatively paltry $500,000 to star as Spidey in The Amazing Spider-Man.
I just did 80% of your job. Huh? That's how you were paying me?
$500,000? The movie ended up making over $750 million, so what gives? Well, coming off the heels of Spider-Man 3, which turned into a joke in and of itself, and being that Andrew Garfield wasn't a big movie star yet, it sort of makes sense. And I know what you're thinking. Tom Holland wasn't a big star either, but he made a ton. Actually, Tom Holland also only made $500,000 for his starring role in Spider-Man Homecoming, although with bonuses it bumped up to $1.5 million. And for Garfield, his contract stipulated that he would get $1 million for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so we can't feel too bad. But that still doesn't hold a candle to the $7 million Tobey Maguire made for his starring role in the original Spider-Man, which he then negotiated up to $17.5 million for the next one.
I'll pay you the usual rate.
MJ, Spider-Man's iconic red-haired love interest, was conspicuously absent from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it turns out that she was actually cast and shot all her scenes for the movie, but was eventually cut. Who'd they cast? Shailene Woodley, best known for Big Little Lies and the Divergent series. But why did they cast her and shoot her scenes but then cut her? Well, if you saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you know it's already chock full of characters, and spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1. Emma Stone's character Gwen and Spidey's main love interest in the film dies in the third act. So, introducing a new love interest that soon probably would have left an even worse taste in viewers' collective mouths. In the comic book world, Brian Michael Bendis is highly celebrated. He's the main creator of the Ultimate Marvel Universe and came up with some very popular storylines for Marvel Comics, like Age of Ultron. So Brian was brought into The Amazing Spider-Man to decide one thing, something the internet has debated forever and will always debate: organic web shooters or mechanical? For those of us who were pop culture conscious around 2012 when The Amazing Spider-Man came out, we remember how big a deal it was that they went from organic web shooters in the original trilogy to mechanical web shooters in this one.
Go web! Fly!
And the final decision went to Brian Michael Bendis. Before The Amazing Spider-Man, they sat me down in Amy Pascal's office with this big room full of producers and writers and directors, and she looked at me and said, "Organic web shooters or mechanical web shooters?" I said mechanical, and half the table said, "God damn it!" They were mad because I was clearly the deciding vote, even though I didn't know that. So when I see the mechanical web shooters, I feel a little happiness. I mean, mechanical web shooters are fine, but then we don't get the way too much fun and way too long discussion about things like, how many Big Macs would Spider-Man have to eat to produce that much web? Ah, the 2012s. As if Gwen and Spider-Man aren't enough of a storybook romance, the real-life romance that bloomed off-screen gave it a run for its money. It took a little while to start up, as it didn't click until closer to the film's release, but when it happened big. According to Andrew Garfield, it was like I woke up when she came in. She was the last person to screen test, and I was so bored of it by then that I was mucking about. And then she came in, and it was like diving into whitewater rapids and having no desire to hang on to the side. And it makes complete and total sense. I mean, look at them. They're both very attractive, and Emma has one of the coolest personalities in Hollywood. And she didn't ruin it like Jennifer Lawrence. It's one of the reasons Emma Stone is so successful. Unfortunately, the romance didn't last forever, but it did last 4 years, which in Hollywood translates to about 100. But that's not the only Spider-Man romance to bloom between romantic leads. During the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, according to Sam Raimi, they began dating during the first movie. They eventually broke up, though, before the second movie started filming, and given the fact that Tobey met his future wife in 2003, it looks like they dated less than a year. Fast forward to today, and it's 3 for 3. As of July 2021, it looks very much like Tom Holland and Zendaya are definitely dating, as they were seen making out in Tom's Audi. I knew it! There must be a vast Hollywood conspiracy of executives and PR people forcing co-stars to date to maximize profits. Or Spider people are usually young, hot, and single, and so is their co-star. Move over, Raya. There's a new place where celebrities can meet and date each other. Spider-Man movies. When I moved to Los Angeles, I made the shocking discovery that almost every show, no matter where it's set, is almost entirely shot here. Judge Judy? Los Angeles. Friends? Los Angeles. Even the quintessential New York show Seinfeld was shot here in LA.
You know, we're living in a society!
So very much on trend with other properties set in New York, Spider-Man was no different, being filmed mostly in Los Angeles, getting only what they absolutely needed in the Big Apple. Until The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came along and bucked that trend, filming its entire length in the city that never sleeps. They shot in Manhattan, Long Island, and upstate in Rochester and Albany. But despite this landmark decision, the film still fell flat, which just goes to show, gimmick or no gimmick, a good movie has got to start with a good script. Gwen Stacy's death is a big deal in the Amazing Spider-Man comics, and the filmmakers left in a bit of an Easter egg for extremely detail-oriented fans of the series. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, as Gwen is falling to her death, they cut to a clock with its hands spinning out of control. But if you watch closely... You're right, Emma Stone just died, I'll stop. You'll notice the hands stop at 121, which is a reference to the Amazing Spider-Man issue 121, the night Gwen Stacy died. Fans of the comics will also notice she's wearing the same outfit as the comics during her fateful fall. Another bit of foreshadowing came at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 1. After Spider-Man slings himself out of a crane, we can see the George Washington Bridge, which is where Gwen Stacy falls to her death in the sequel. It's kind of vague, but the film's animation supervisor, David Shobe, said it's foreshadowing. And honestly, who am I to question Shobe? Looks like the filmmakers behind the Amazing Spider-Man movies wanted to start up a Sinister Six storyline in the third film that never got made. How do I know? Look no further than the ending of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where a shadowy man, later identified as the Gentleman, walks through a room with Doc Ock and Vulture's costumes. According to director David Webb, we were talking about the Sinister Six. They were going to make a Sinister Six movie before we did the third one, and then there was this character called the Gentleman. We had some notions about how to do it, but I think maybe we were thinking too far ahead when we started building in those things. Also, in an extremely odd, but also very awesome technology tie-in, if you opened up Shazam during the Alicia Keys song in the credits, a sequence of images would play on your phone, teasing the members of the Sinister Six: Vulture, Rhino, Doc Ock, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, and Green Goblin. Too bad it didn't work out. But don't despair, Sinister Six shippers. Spider-Man No Way Home is shaping up to be a potential Sinister Six vehicle, if Easter eggs from the trailers are any indication. We'll know soon enough. Maybe you already know because you're watching this in 2022, and aliens have invaded, so you have nothing better to do than watch YouTube videos waiting in your cell for the alien gruel. Oh well, still better than 2020. The Spider-Man series is no stranger to Venom teases, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is no different. In fact, I had a line in here about how the trailer clearly pointed to Venom being in the Spidey sequel, but then I took a look, and this is the proof.
This is my...
I don't know, pretty flimsy. But there were also some Easter eggs in the movie itself. When Harry Osborn is going through Oscorp's database of secret projects, always a treasure trove of Easter eggs, one entry is titled Venom Storage. Is it just regular Venom, or everyone's favorite symbiote? Fans speculated that because this universe has all the heroes and villains created right there at Oscorp, maybe Venom Storage is referring to the Spider-Venom that turned Spidey into a superhero, which they would then use to create Venom right there at Oscorp. This would also connect to the Ultimate Spider-Man comic, where director David Webb got a lot of inspiration. In it, Ben Parker and Eddie Brock's father researched and developed the Venom suit as a cure for cancer, and given the fact that director David Webb was anticipating 5 movies, it would fit in this universe and in the timeline. Other notable entries from the database are a reference to experiment Oct-32A, which refers to Doc Ock appearing 32 times in the Ultimate Spider-Man comic series, and another file titled Dr. Morbius, referring to Dr. Michael Morbius, who becomes Morbius the Living Vampire, another villain for Spider-Man, who actually got his own series. Morbius is just this year coming to the big screen with Jared Leto playing the titular role. And yes, he does have an extreme weight loss journey for this film too. We get it, Jared. You have an almost supervillain-like control of your fat cells. Now can you hurry up and get us some of that sweet weight loss DNA? Where's Oscorp when you need it? Dehaan, who played Harry Osborn in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, is clearly jealous of Jared Leto's powers of weight control, as he really tried but didn't quite succeed. His Green Goblin suit was way too hot, and he suffered from heat exhaustion. They made a little system that pumped cool air into his suit between takes, but it did have a downside. I lost 7 pounds in 2 days of filming, which was pretty much all the weight I'd put on for the movie. Okay, well I do feel kind of bad. I feel like I've lost 7 pounds in 2 days before. Like 2 days after Thanksgiving, if I weigh myself right after dinner, then in the morning 2 days later, 7 pounds. Or if I spend 2 days at a music festival, 7 pounds. All very viable sudden weight loss scenarios, and nowhere near Jared Leto. Sorry, Dane. So, the Amazing Spider-Man universe is best known as a failure, but after looking into it a bit more, seems like a lot of media hype. The Amazing Spider-Man 1, which was universally considered a success, made $758 million worldwide. The sequel, which was universally panned as a failure, made $708 million. Sounds pretty good to me. What gives? Unfortunately, it's all about doing better than the last one. And the original Spider-Man series did gangbusters. The original made $821 million. The sequel made $789 million, and the third came in on top at almost $900 million. So when The Amazing Spider-Man came along and made less than any of the originals, followed by a drop in returns for the second, the studio decided to pull the plug. And it looks like it was a good decision, as Spider-Man Homecoming made a lot more than The Amazing Spider-Man, taking in $880 million, with its sequel blowing even that out of the water with a take of $1.1 billion big ones. So it seemed like an over-the-top decision was actually a great one, at least money-wise. But to consider The Amazing Spider-Man a failure is like considering vanilla ice cream a failure. Like, sure, it's not chocolate chip, but it's still ice cream.